So welcome to Game of the Month, Pokemon Snap. My name's Nolan. I will be facilitating the conversation. Thank you for coming. Let's talk a little bit about what Pokemon Snap is first. It's a game from 1999 for the Nintendo 64, made by HAL Laboratories, known for the Kirby series, Mother series, Smash Bros. Series, also Pokemon Snap. And it's a rail shooter, but instead of bullets, you're shooting photos, I guess. And it's sold at least 1.5 million copies, which is pretty good for a weird game with no violence. It has a pretty big legacy as well. It was re-released on the Wii and the Wii U Virtual Consoles with not a whole lot of extra features, but it's there. It just got a sequel this year, 22 years later. That's pretty exciting, called New Pokemon Snap, which continues to prove that Nintendo does not know how to name things. And it has a couple of other interesting effects that have continued forward. There's a very iconic Blockbuster kiosk that you can see here, where people could bring in their cartridges and print photos from it. It was in the brick and mortar Blockbuster stores, and there were you'd print out sticker sets of the photos that you took in game, which is really, really cool, right? Right, a great way to turn a piece of digital photography into physical photography. That was not so common and not so easy in 1999. And it was also the most rented game at one point back in the days when people rented games. So it was this really cool tie-in that I think also helped boost its popularity, because this was when Pokemon was very, very new. Not the highest grossing media franchise of all time like it is now. This was, the first game to just come out. This was one of the early entries in the series. So this was a cool way for it to get some visibility. It also extended into the Pokemon anime, with the character of Todd Snap showing up in a number of different episodes, where he is a photographer and he's trying to take pictures of Pokemon. So it also kind of ties back in all to that. And that's something that Pokemon is generally good at as a transmedia property, is feeding itself back into itself from its various different angles. And I don't know if this is directly inspired by Pokemon Snap, but there is a photo mode in recent Pokemon games like Pokemon Go, where you can just take pictures of Pokemon. So that's pretty great, and Pokemon Snap was the first one to let you do that. To give you a little bit more of an idea of what it is, I'm going to play the first level. So I think I have to reshare to this. This will probably work, but I have not tried. So we'll experiment together. Let's see. This should be full screen for you now. Let me know if it is not. And you should be able to hear it as well. Is there sound?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so this is Baby Castle, so let's get some baby going. I'm playing on a Wii U right now.
Hello there.
So you should be able to see. Okay, so this is Professor Oak, yes. And he's just oh, that's weird, you're here. Okay, take some pictures, why not? We're on Pokemon Island. It's great. I invented a car. I bet you'll love it. Sorry, there's chat here too. I will look at it in a moment. And you can teleport and stuff. I don't know. He invented a bunch of technology just for you to be he's counting on us, baby, for us to go take pictures.
Yes.
And the way this game works is you go to these different levels. This is the beach level. And it just asks you to take pictures. right? And you can zoom in and take pictures, and you want to take a lot of Pokemon pictures, right? And there's this kind of like clockwork system of Pokemon doing, you know, the same thing every time, that you can influence them through some different items. But there's a lot of, you know, a lot of skill in learning what the system is. I wanted to get that Lapras and I didn't. Ah! I'm used to playing new Pokemon Snap now, and these controls are inverted. It's a whole thing. The system here with red dots, where if you take red dot photos, then things might happen. Also, sometimes you'll see Pokemon that are just like question mark. They don't count yet. You have to interact with them in some ways, through items that you get. So there's this progression system where you'll unlock apple-shaped Pokemon food, and you'll unlock tester balls, things like that to interact with the world. And it's all just about going on this on-rails photo safari and taking good pictures. And yes, hello, Lapras. Okay, that was an okay Lapras. And Pokemon will be in the same places, do the same thing. Get Lapras over here, yeah. So you get this really cool sense of you know, a huge world, even though it's actually pretty limited in what it's doing. Because the animations are very, very fun and expressive, right? There are so few polygons in this, but ooh, that wasn't as good and easy as I wanted. Oh, there's a really close Lapras there. And so, right, they get a lot out of a little with just, you know, grabbing the frame. The mechanics are very simple, the tech is very simple, but, you know, the art and design are very evocative and friendly, and give you a lot of opportunity to be expressive as a player. So that's first level. Then, of course, you get to the part where you have to give your photos. You can only submit one of each Pokemon to Professor Oak for his rating. So let's go with this one. And look at all of them. There's a pretty good duo. Yeah, Pikachu hanging out. Why not? Love that. Got a couple of Butterfree. I think that's probably the best one. I got a lot of good Laprases, I think. Ooh, that one's... I like that one the best. Actually, wait, let me check. Yeah, I think that's the one I wanted to get. I didn't. Whatever. Doesn't matter. That's good. We'll check out... How about this Meowth? He's got a very interesting rating system. Ooh, that is not going to be as good. All right, let's try this one. He likes them to be big, in the center of the frame, and looking at you. And if they're not, then he doesn't give you as many points. Okay, great. So let's see how he rated these photos.
Yes.
So yeah, he checks for size, you know, how big it is. He checks for pose. That's kind of like a combination of like, is it looking at you? Is it doing anything fun? And then technique is it in the center? And if it is, then it's double. And if all of those, you also get a same Pokemon bonus. If it's all of those, then he gives you a wonderful, which is the most important part of this entire game, is Professor Oak telling you wonderful. So let's see if we get a couple more.
You were close.
No, he didn't like that. See, it was looking away from us. Not good on the pose score.
Wonderful.
But we get a wonderful here. Love that Pikachu.
Wonderful.
Another wonderful here. Even though sideways is looking at us enough.
Wonderful.
Yeah, great. So
close.
you know, there's a pretty simple scoring system.
Wonderful.
But there's just a couple of things you want
close.
to, you know, keep in mind when you're out there trying to get good photos.
Great.
Okay, so that's kind of how this game works. gonna go back to my presentation. Let's see. Where did my chat go? Sorry, catching up on chat now. Yes. Those are fun things. Continuing on, I'll tell you a little bit about myself and my relationship to this game. So my name is Nolan Filter. I am a game designer. I teach. I do other development for Weird Cool Future Tech. And I am a pretty much lifelong Pokemon fan. I started with the first games right when they came out. Played Red as my first, Game Boy game. Absolutely immediately fell in love. And I've played every game since, pretty much. I'm just playing through new Pokemon Snap on my stream at Calamity Nolan. And I actually started picking, when I heard that new Pokemon Snap was coming out, and I was kind of looking to get into streaming regularly, I decided that I was going to play new Pokemon Snap. But I was going to start with playing Pokemon Snap. So I had a month before that. Thank you for posting. About a month before that, I was like, okay, I'll give myself plenty of time to play Pokemon Snap, really dive into it. And I finished it pretty quickly. It turns out it's not that long a game, and it's hard to play for a month. So I started speedrunning it, and I actually made it onto the leaderboard, which is pretty fun. I'm ranked 19th for Wii U Virtual Console in the world. And so I recently have fallen in love with Pokemon Snap all over again, even though I did play it before in my youth. And yeah, my favorite Pokemon is Whismur, which was actually the Pokemon plush of the week that I shared today on my stream, which I still have right here. Love him. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I have some prompts if you want to talk about them, but we don't have to immediately. I think just to start off, I want to open it up and see, what are other people's overall impressions of the game and what's their relationship to Pokemon Snap and the Pokemon series.
I can totally go first.
Sure.
I was dropping in chat and we were kind of talking before we began that I was like, well, I played this when I was a kid, had an N64. It was my first console. One I had the longest, because then I think I just went right to GameCube and then moved out of my parents' home. And I don't think we had an Xbox at that point. My brother got it probably when I moved out. So N64 was just the console of my youth. And this game, I think, was that. So I just having so much nostalgia feels. I felt like I just knew the track in my head. I didn't even have to watch play footage again. I could just go back, because you're right, it is so short. But I liked that when I was young. I probably was anywhere from I don't think I was playing when I was 6. So maybe 8, maybe 10. And it just was a comfort I liked how repetitive it was, but I liked how you could get better at it every time. And something that I'm kind of having a little bit of a moment is one game I'm really obsessed with that some people probably know on the call right now is my pandemic game was Cuphead. And the same fucking mechanics are at play, right? It's get better, get good, do it over again, but it's cute graphics and no gore or any of that. And I think it was the same thing. And it's cool that started so long ago for me. And it was just a comfort play that I didn't even really think would have this long of an effect decades later.
Awesome, thank you. Anyone else want to talk about their relationship to the game?
I know for me personally, I didn't have access to an N64 until I was in my 20s. I didn't play a lot of games as a kid, and it was something that I played only like years and years later, but I loved Pokemon. I was completely obsessed with Pokemon. Like I had a Game Boy, I was really into that, and I spent years, collecting the cards and everything. And as I got older, I was like, oh no, I've like grown out of Pokemon. I don't really care about that anymore. And I definitely like as I started sort of playing games again in my 20s, was like, oh no, actually I'm totally not over Pokemon like at all. I love Pokemon. They're the shit. Um, and when I first played Pokemon Snap, it definitely sort of appeals to that. Um, it appeals to that sort of like very casual but very fulfilling and calm sort of gameplay where you're kind of doing something and it's challenging, but it's not like you're not like really angry at it, where it's really difficult and you're trying it again and again and again. It's more like you're just doing it because it's sort of a challenge that you have with yourself. And in a lot of ways, it's just very like, it's very chill and it's very relaxing and it feels like a very fulfilling sort of calm experience. And I feel like that's definitely what they were going for with like the whole photography aspect. Like the stakes are pretty low, it's very calm. And I feel like such a nice way for people who maybe aren't necessarily super hardcore gaming people to kind of ease themselves into gaming stuff.
Definitely. Did anyone play this game for the first time for Game of the Month Club?
My first experience with it is like watching you play it on stream, if I'm being honest.
That's cool too.
I definitely didn't play it. I played it back in the day when it came out, but there, other than when I showed it to Nisa, a couple of years or a year or two ago, like I hadn't actually played it, and that wasn't very thorough when that happened. But we just watched the entire thing on YouTube. Not like they did everything that's possible because the game is like rich with like little secret things that you can do here and there. But like a playthrough to the end where you get to the rainbow cloud and photograph Mew, that only took an hour and 20 minutes. It was like, I was kind of shocked at how short it was because I like didn't remember it being that short, because I know that I had to iterate a lot to actually figure things out back when I first played it.
Yeah, that was surprising to me on revisit as well, is I really felt like this big thing, and part of that was just like there's a lot of like kind of wonky gates in there where it's like, oh, you got to like throw this exact thing at this exact place in this exact stage to unlock the next area, and if you don't know where that is, then it's really difficult to find sometimes. But then when I was replaying it, those things just sort of were in my brain already. And so I was like, oh yeah, I think I have to like hit the Porygon here. Oh yeah, that's it. And then it actually, was went pretty quick, even getting 100% of the Pokemon.
Yeah, I mean, when you sort of like break it down to, and try to categorize it, it's novel in that it's a game about photography, and I can't really think of too many others that are like, where that's the main mechanic. But like, uh, it's really a puzzle game. Like that's, like progressing to the end of the game, like what you have to do is figure out what the right, combination of chucking stuff at the Pokemon and photographing them is to get there. Like,
yeah, definitely, and it's almost like an adventure game style in that as well. You're like, okay, I unlocked the Pester Ball. Now let me hit everything in the world with this Pester Ball to see what the unique interaction is, and if any of those are what allow me to move on. Yeah, so uh, I think a lot of people have been talking about how it's really interesting that it is not it's a photography game, right? And it's a gentle game, and I think that something cool about it is apparently in development, they had this system, and it wasn't really working with playtesters. It felt kind of boring. And it wasn't until they brought in the Pokemon IP to this prototype that it actually became the game, that it like breathed life into it, that all of a sudden people were interested in interacting with these, you know, magical creatures, and they put all this effort into making them expressive and fun and interesting and doing weird things, and that's when people actually started liking the system.
That does really sell it. I mean, like part of what I loved so much about it back in the day was that, you know, I liked Pokemon, but it was all black and white and two-dimensional, and this like builds out the world in a way that even the, you know, the anime didn't do, where, you know, you feel like you see the Pokemon living, doing their thing, and you know, you're in there with them. But like I don't know much about the development of this game. What would you have been photographing before in, you know, the earlier versions of it?
Is my understanding that it was a more like realistic safari game, so animals, but you know, the low poly animals on the Nintendo 64.
That could have been hilarious, but definitely would not have been as memorable.
Right. Whereas, you know, I suppose there are other opportunities to see whatever, a lion or something in real life, but there aren't other opportunities to get up and close, you know, with a Pikachu.
I think also just the concept of like it's helping to build out a fictional world that most kids at that point were really familiar with. Like, I mean, everyone was playing Pokemon, and it's like, well, there's the real world, and you can see a giraffe and you can see a lion, and these things are in, you know, your picture book when you're learning your A to Z's as a kid, and it's like the cow says moo, and you're like, yeah, okay, I know. But I think the world building aspect of Pokemon, where it's not just that you're seeing animals that you know, but it's like animals you kind of know, but you mostly know in the context of a card game or a video game or an anime, where you're just seeing them like interact with each other. Like you see, I may get the details of this wrong, but like you see, you know, an Eevee chasing, you know, a Ditto or whatever around a rock or a tree, and it's like they're all interacting with each other. There's a lot of little details where like they're really it really feels like the world is very fleshed out, and you're kind of just going through the wilderness and seeing these like not real animals that you're kind of acquainted with but not fully acquainted with. So it sort of captures the spirit of this like time in your life when you're like learning about the world around you, but you're not actually like it's stuff that is totally alien. And I think that's really cool, just because you do get a certain level of world building with, you know, the anime, obviously, but with this, it's much more immersive. And I think that's definitely something that I know as a kid at the time, the idea of, you know, just being able to go out and capture a Pokemon is so exciting, even on photography rather than in a Pokeball.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, Robin was pointing out there's another game that has more realistic animals that I think, yeah, is not as beloved as Pokemon Snap, which, you know, that it is. You saw something similar with Pokemon Go, when there's this technology that had been around for previous games, right? Like it's very similar to Niantic's game before that, whose name is Ingress. Basically, same system. There's some other location-based, you know, augmented reality mobile games before that as well, and it wasn't really until you get, you know, the power of the Pokemon IP, which maybe doesn't even fit that well with like this technology of like, wait, there's Pokemon in the real world. Is that like part of the world building? What's going on with that? But it just getting those, you know, cute critters as the thing that you're interacting with, I think goes a long way to getting people invested, right? Like that's a core strength of Pokemon as an intellectual property. Oh, Snap is the only Pokemon game you have played. That's very interesting. I would love to hear more about your experience with with maybe Snap as a game, and how, like, what the mechanics of Pokemon are to you. Because I think there are some shorthands that you're expected to know in Pokemon Snap, right? There's like evolution, right? That sometimes you just have to know that Pokemon transform into other Pokemon sometimes, and that's a like puzzle that you have to solve to get pictures of evolved Pokemon.
And the types and like yeah, a few things like that.
Sure, unmute if you would like.
Hi, some of you know me well enough.
Hey, Robin.
Yeah, hey buddies. Yeah, no, some kids I know, like a friend of mine's younger siblings got Pokemon Snap for Christmas, and we're playing it on N64, and I had the 64 at the time. And I was like, "What is this game? This looks like a baby game with these, because that's how I saw Pokemon. Because I think I'm older than most of the people on the call, but I was like, this game is wild. There's nothing like this, nothing. It's like essentially one of the first like non-violent sort of indie-ish games that you would have come across in the mainstream. And so I bought it like as like an 18-year-old. I like went to the store. I'm like, I gotta get this Pokemon Snap. This is really good. I got a job. I can pick this up. And it was so easy to fall in love with the world because they're basically like it's like it's like this Disney ride of these characters dancing and singing for you. And I got so invested in them because you have to, yeah, I didn't know anything about the world and I had to puzzle it out, and I had to learn the rules of who these creatures are from scratch to get farther in the game. Yeah, it is very much, it's a small world. And like I said it earlier in the chat, like I could have game FAQ'd what to do, but that didn't feel in the spirit of it. So it was like a crash course in learning Pokemon while like, with this much more engaging mechanic of the photography element, which like no there's no game like that at the time. So yeah, my entire Pokemon knowledge is that one game. Like that's my entire experience of the IP. Um, and yet like it's really stuck with me. I'm like, oh okay, yeah, no, like the Doug trios, like they're this, and like, you know, the Bulbasaur is this, and I'm like, it literally comes from just having that. Like I like it's weird that did such a good job of selling the game, and selling those characters. Whereas like most people's induction point for it is the way more abstracted Game Boy game, which has like, in looking at it, it's like there's barely any personality there, right? And I guess like the anime is where most people got their affinity for it because the characters are as lively there. But for me, it's all Snap.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, that there's, right, you had to use your imagination a lot with the Game Boy game to sort of piece together what was going on. And even I think the anime has, in the early seasons, was a little bit rough animation wise. So, to see so much like love and care go into these Pokemon animations and Pokemon Snap is a great way to like get to know the Pokemon.
It's really interesting. I've always been aware of the fact that it feels kind of like a theme park ride, and that was mentioned a little earlier. But it's interesting when you think about the fact that it doesn't have like like kind of a core element of a theme park ride is that there is some kind of narrative built into the experience of traveling through each of those little level things. But like you can't have that here because it would ruin the sort of immersion, the safari aspect of it. Like, you know, I mean, there are little things here and there where if you poke a certain Pokemon a certain way, something will happen later down, and that's kind of, you know, tells a little story of its own kind. But like, yeah, it's just like a lot of stuff that happens, and I don't know. Um, it kind of makes me think like, are there other games that are like a theme park ride more than this? Maybe a little off topic.
I was gonna say, there is a precedent for this game, sort of. There's a PC Engine game, where you're like a tabloid photographer, and it scrolls left to right, but it's a lot about kind of pressing the button at the right time, and just having your kind of reticule over the right spot. So like that construct works where you're like, oh, I got the explicit photo at the right time, and there is a narrative of you being a tabloid photographer. But yeah, like again, like I think that's the strong point of this game is like we talk about this like interplay of imagination and non-imagination. It's like the Pokemon themselves feel very alive, right? And you start to create this narrative of what they're doing and how their lives go about. And so again, like I was saying, like I don't know these characters, but there's so much there for me to, interpret a world for them and just create my own narrative for them of like, oh, this is what Pokemon do. This is the world of Pokemon that I'm going to infer based on no outside knowledge, no watching the anime. Like, okay, yeah, this is how they live. And I think it's a credit to the game that like there's enough there that you can just be like, oh, okay, yeah, I know the world of Pokemon. I create the internet. I create what the narrative is uh, of why I would be doing this and what role these animals serve.
Yeah, and I think you make a good point as well about there being there's like real world precedent for these mechanics, right? This is a camera. There's an analog version of that. Like people understand how cameras work. If you're like a tabloid photographer or, a nature photographer or whatever, photojournalist of any kind, you kind of understand what that is already. And so it makes this kind of an approachable entry into the Pokemon world because you don't need to learn like, oh, what is a trainer? What do they do? They can only have 6 Pokemon. You need to have type balances and like learn moves and all these things, right? This is just a pretty easy way to step into the Pokemon world because it's mostly rooted in our world with just like a little bit of Pokemon fantasy in there. Which I think is pretty cool. Do people have a favorite level in this game that they want to talk about?
I don't know if I could talk about it a lot, but there's like definitely one that has fire, right? The volcanoes. Sick. So good.
I think I like the caves just because I always thought it was really cool that there are the Dittos in there that are Bulbasaurs, and they register as Bulbasaurs if you don't, turn them into Dittos. And then, that layered with some of the other little hidden things in there, like, getting the Articuno out of its egg and stuff. I feel like there are a lot of secrets in that one that are nice to find.
Yeah, I remember moments more than levels. Like, and again, this is almost 20 years ago. I'm more than 20 years ago. I'm playing this game. The way there's like one where the magnet orbs like cluster together and like have a moment, and then they like power up as I vaguely remember it. And that's one of those things of like I think if you know exactly what to do in this game, like you saw, the speed run was like an hour and a half, right? Or like the playthrough was like an hour and a half. Like if you know that you can make that happen, that probably takes the magic out of it. And it's why I'm reticent to replay it even now, is because at the time that felt like emergent gameplay. You know, that I was like, oh no, I caused that, instead of like, no, I just tripped some flags and like that would happen for anybody. I'm like, no, it was because I was there at the right time. Like, and that's actually like why it really feels good to be a photographer, because like photography is so much about like, well, no, I was in the right place at the right time to take that photo. And that's the stuff I remember. You know, it's like, oh, I caught Pikachu surfboarding, like, because it was all me who made that happen, instead of like, no, you just you hit the sequence of flags. That's why it happened. Everybody gets the same result.
Yeah, I think the tunnel is also my favorite level. For some of those reasons, yeah, it is like really interesting to see a Magnemite evolve into a Magneton, because there's like 3 of them that come together, which is not necessarily how it happens in the Pokemon like Game Boy games and the main series games, right? So there is this moment of surprise there, and also I like throughout the level, I think more so than other levels, there's a lot of signposting. Well, there's also literal signs, but there's a lot of signposting for mechanics that you'll get later. And there's like, okay, well, I know I can turn that on somehow. I just don't know how to do it yet. And so when you return to the tunnel later with more items or more knowledge, it's very rewarding that you can like unlock all these things and get pretty cool rewards. And yeah, I think they are flags, but I think they're very satisfying flags that you're tripping.
So I haven't played the new one yet. I bought it and it sits on my shelf like so many things do. But like that was something that I was kind of wondering about it, is, you know, whether in my sort of like ideal imagination for what a new Pokemon Snap game would be, like they would take some of these things further, of course, and, you know, it would be bigger and they would hide the flags better. It would feel more like, you know, like a natural world with randomness. And also the judging of the photos would be a little bit more, you know, a little bit less how big is the Pokemon in the frame. It doesn't really matter what it actually looks like, but you know, that's hard to do. I'm just curious to know, you know, you've played the new one. What did you think of that in those respects?
Sure. I liked the new one a whole lot. And I think where it really excels is like the new areas that you go to are like even more fantastical and fun. I guess, yeah, there's one where you like go to the ocean floor, which is like incredible. And I just love the ocean deep. And so like seeing all these like underwater Pokemon, like living in like a natural habitat was really fun, even though it is like still on a rail. I think in terms of flag hiding, they do a good job at that. But I also maybe think they do too good a job at that at some point, where it's like, you know, there was a couple of levels where I really don't understand how to like do different things, and it's kind of like, well, I actually really just want to like go to this one area, but I'm not totally certain how to trigger that. So I kind of have to do some random things. So you know, it's definitely a trade-off there. But there's, you know, it's still delightful, and there's still a lot of things to discover, and I'm still discovering in the game. So I think they do a pretty smart job of trying to like layer in all these new mechanics to make it a bigger game than the first one without really losing what made the first one special.
Cool.
So yeah, I recommend, if you have it, especially, you should just play it. Yeah, I don't know if anyone else has played the sequel yet, or
What's
just
it
the
on again?
It's on Switch.
Don't have Switch.
Fair enough. Yeah. Yeah. Talking about sort of the mechanics that Pokemon Snap has, are there anything that you wish more games would pull from Pokemon Snap? Do you think like, oh, they like really nailed it here, and this like should just appear in more games, or I guess should have, given it is 22 years old now?
I mean, so many games do have a photo mode now, but it's works a bit differently. It's not, it's not really built into the gameplay in any way. I don't know of many games still that involve that kind of gameplay. So I wish some other games had taken that, in a different and interesting direction. I think there's some horror game that does it, right? Nisa, do you know about that?
Yeah, Fatal Frame has a photography mechanic as sort of like the main thrust of the game. Um, there hasn't been a Fatal Frame game in a long time. I think they've just announced a new one, which is like I think it's been like 10 years since the last one or something like that, at least. Um, but yeah, there's not a lot of games that I can think of where photography is sort of like the main thrust of the gameplay. I know lots of games that have sort of taken it as inspiration for little things like to complete a mission, you have to take a photo of whatever. Like I work on a game where it's like we have missions where you have to take a photo of a certain like dinosaur or animal to complete it. But I don't know of anything where that's like the main sort of gameplay now. And that's interesting because I think the sort of combination of rail shooter and photography in like a very peaceful and calm way is something that could probably be explored more. And it's interesting that it kind of hasn't been. And I wonder if maybe with, a Snap sequel, I do wonder if we'll see more of that in the near future. And I think that would be really interesting.
One of the things I would add is, and I do think I would like to see it in more things, because it was something I noticed when I played the game. And I played it around the same time I played Mega Man Legends. So I'll make the comparison here. They both Mega Man Legends has like a little town to it that you kind of do stuff in, and they both felt like games where you hung out. You know what I mean? Like they felt like places to be, um, and not just levels, not just game environments. We talk about the calmingness of it, and it's because it just feels like, oh, you're at the beach, like, and that's always the level you kind of begin with in Snap, is that beachfront area. But it just like, even though it's on rails, it didn't feel like, okay, like I can sense the geometry of how this is built. I know where the encounter. I can see how this is funneling to me towards encounters. I'm just kind of passively observing this place, and there aren't a lot of games where I can think of like, give me a strong sense of place, give me a strong sense of like a lived in world that you can't instantly go like, well, no, I see the seams of this, I see how this is like, this is really just a level. That's one of the things I remember the most about the game, and feel like I haven't felt in a lot of games in the 20 years since.
Yeah, this is kind of a weird comparison, but what you were talking about made me think of PT, and how the like main mechanic in that game is just like staring intently at something, right? Like that's how you like trigger things and how you like move through the space. And I think that that's like a really fun and interesting idea, especially for horror, because that's like, that's how you get your scares then. But I would love that to be a mechanic that shows up in other games. It's just like, hey, like spending time with things is the way that I primarily interact with them.
I think that the mechanics of observation are something that a lot of people have kind of dug into on a maybe light level, but I feel like it's never been really fully explored. And I mean, if people do know stuff like that, then please tell me because I'm really into it. But I think that idea of like you're someone who's kind of just taking in the world around you and using that as a mechanic. And I feel like that's something that especially in like walking simulators, you see a lot. And I really like the idea of taking that and making it more active. I mean, considering I don't know how much more active like a rail game is than like a walking simulator when you really get down to it. But I think that that's something that could be a really cool mechanic to explore.
A writing simulator, yeah. It is interesting to think about those, right? Because this is, we've talked about an amusement park, but you still get the sense that, you know, it's sort of within your control, right? Or you're participating in it. And you know, I think that shows a lot of good design and giving you opportunities to express yourself. But also that's just really cool that the way the mechanics shake out is that you get to decide what you're looking at. And sometimes that's enough for a game, right? You don't need a lot of like active intervention in the area.
Yeah, that actually just made me think like how different it would be if it was more of like a fixed camera a little bit more. Like if it were like you have to look to the left at this point and then see what you can take and then go away. Because we see these, you know, I'm thinking like really art direction heavy games, like maybe like something like Layers of Fear and stuff. And like I think we're talking about horror a lot. So like the idea of like time is built in, like you're just like locked in a room and you have to like time it out before you can leave. That gets kind of old. So I think you being on rails and like the time is always moving around you is pretty interesting. And my background's in music, so I think I'm always interested in that element of games and where like almost rhythm, like kind of going out on a ledge here. Like I think I found it really calming as a kid because I knew what to expect. And so I almost kind of knew the beats of like Pikachu, it's gonna be over here, and then like this is gonna come across the screen, and like I was almost mapping it out on a score. And I love rhythm games. That's like something I've always been gravitating towards. So I don't know. That's another cool element that has been taken in a lot of different directions. Because I know like Thumper is a really great game if y'all have like seen that and played that. That's like fascinating with rhythm and like intensity. So not as calm, I guess, but an interesting kind of takeaway.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, are there any rhythm photography games? I can't think of any, but I feel like that would be very fun. But yeah. Yeah, was there anything in the game that you wish there was more of, that you would change? What sort of parts made you feel a little bit more lacking in the game?
I mean, you know, the judging of the photos at the end is one of the you know, weakest points in it, I think, because it's like, you know, what can you expect? It's an N64 game in 1999 or whatever. But was it 99 or was it 2000? Something like that.
99, yeah.
But so it's pretty awkward. It judges it by how big the Pokemon is in the frame. but there's some kind of, hitbox at work, and you can go too far, but you aren't really sure with some of them, like Charizard, because how the fuck do you fit him in the frame? It's how centered it is. It's, I guess, whether it's facing it and whether it's doing a move or something interesting. That's it. Like, there's nothing about composition, there's nothing about color, there's nothing, you could have a really great photo and Professor Oak could still trash it, because it just wasn't centered. It's like there's no, rule of thirds or anything like that at play. Like, today they could probably write a much more, complex, design for judging the photos at the end. I don't know if it would be successful either, because it might be a little too complex still, but it's that part definitely left something to be desired, I thought.
And I was talking about how like the world feels mysterious in the game, but the thing you feel the strings of first is like the photo judging. Like that was kind of the first thing where you push up against the edge of what the game is and go like, really? Like, oh, come on. And it kind of starts to degrade the experience when you're like, whoa, this is a mystical world. Like this world I'm exploring. Oh, this is interesting. And like, I'm taking the photographs. What are the rules of the photographs? And you kind of do figure out that the rules of the photographs, like at first you're like, oh, they must be really complex. And then you do kind of quickly realize, oh, they're not. Like, and that does kind of deflate the balloon of the experience pretty fast. Yeah. If in the sequel that is more in depth, that does like let you invest a lot more in the actual action of the game.
Well, I will say the actual scoring is not too different. It's a little bit clearer, I think, what they're actually looking for. But the thing that they do is that after you take a picture, number one, you can save pictures independently of their points. So if you just like take a picture you like, you can, store
And
it
that's
yourself.
true in the old one.
In the old one, yeah, you need to pick which photo you want to save, and there's there's limited space and everything. But after that, you number one can like apply filters and like stickers and fun things like that. And then number two, there's like Pokemon Instagram, so that like you can submit your photos for everyone else to look at, and then they can like them and things. So there's like a crowdsourced like judgment system now that's very fun.
It's interesting that that's sort of like the modern day equivalent of the Pokemon Snap printing stations at Blockbuster.
Totally. Yeah. One thing in the game that I wish there was a little different is I wish there was more space between the different items that you get. Because the Pester Ball and the apple-shaped Pokemon food, I feel like wind up being very similar, and the way that they interact with things are very similar. You're just like bonking Pokemon with both of them, and it's unclear like what's supposed to do what in a lot of situations. I feel like that, and the way they introduce them is also backwards, where they like teach you to like it. When you get the apple-shaped Pokemon food, the first thing you have to do with it is throw it at an electrode and like bonk it to make it explode, which is like feels like a Pester Ball behavior, right? That like feels like something that you want to like hit it. And then when you first get the Pester Ball, the thing you have to do is coax a Porygon out of a bush, which feels like that should be that's what the apple should do. It should pull Pokemon towards you. So it feels really confused, and I don't know if there's like a really good I don't know if there's like a good rule of thumb for like when you use which one or why.
I just wanted to note that I love that in the game, and you said this a second ago, they call it apple-shaped Pokemon food. It's not just a damn apple. Like, why isn't it just an apple?
I don't know. And then since then, in the like series we've gotten, there's not like apples, but there's like apple berries, basically. Lepa berries is what they're called in the Pokemon games. And so I was like, okay, so great. In the sequel, they'll have Lepa berries. No, it's another new thing called a fluff fruit, and it's very confusing. And again, it just looks like an apple. It's one of those things where it's like, you should just call it. We know what an apple. It's fine. Like, I don't know
An
what's the
apple by any
concern
other
here
name.
that like Pokemon shouldn't be eating apples. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else that people particularly wanted to discuss about Pokemon Snap? Any topics people wanted to bring up?
It's a relatively simple game. It's possible we've run out of topics, but you know, we can wait another minute and see if anybody has anything.
It seems like it's probably it. It's yeah, you take pictures of the nice Pokemon, and the Pokemon look at you in the camera and are like, why are you taking a picture of me? And they're either chill with it or they aren't. And that's Pokemon Snap.
And that's Pokemon Snap. All right. Well, I guess, yeah, if there's nothing else, then thanks everyone for joining. This was a fun discussion. Yeah, I'm happy to chat with people about this further. If they have any, anything else they want to discuss on the Baby Castles Discord. I'm Calamity Nolan there. And yeah, good to talk to everyone about Pokemon Snap.
Yeah, thanks for hosting. This is great.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so glad you played the first level too. That was just like, oh boy, I'm gonna be riding that nostalgia high the whole week. It just gave me so much joy.
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, that was something where I was like, I kind of want to like give a sense of it, and I was gonna like show a video, but then I was like, wait, I just streamed this. I have the setup. I should just play it. Yeah.
It was perfect. Thank you.
Great. All right then. Have a good night, everybody.
Yeah, have a good night.
Is there any
we
Baby
set-
Castles things that people want to shout out or do whatever?
Or next month's gaming month.
Is that Hades?
Is
Am I
it?
supposed to do that? I still
Is
haven't
it?
played Hades.
Me neither.
If anybody wants to host that, they're welcome to.
Maybe we'll discuss on Discord.
All right, we'll talk about that.
All right then.
Bye everyone. Have a good
Okay.
Have a
Good
great
night.
night. Bye.
Bye.